So look, today we're here with Division 10 Councillor Greg Rogerson. Greg, thanks for meeting with us today.
Pleasure.
So look, the reason we've asked you out here, obviously we're of an understanding as we kind of go through and start exploring verge parking, street widths and all of the surrounding topics, that coming before council in the near future will be a vote on trialling a verge parking initiative. So we're just wondering, first off, what's your position on that? Would you support a verge parking trial?
Look, I dare say the whole of the Sunshine Coast, there's different aspects to verge parking. Yes. Wherever you go, okay? Within Division 10, we've got issues up around the hospital that have been ongoing issues over the last decade. It's a problem that isn't really council's issue, yes. But they're my constituents, just like they are the state government, who has a legitimate role in actually supplying parking for the hospital. Yes. Okay, so look, I understand about verge parking, whether it's on the tourist strips and so forth. But there's a couple of things I think you've got to understand, and that is what the verge should really be for. Yes. And the verge should really be for safe passage. The first and prime reason is the safe passage of people. Yes. Okay? So pedestrians. So there has to be a safe access for people to walk their dogs, their strollers, and so forth. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if there's an instance where and a lot of time we've inherited through the national standards that some developers have actually put in, yes. where the actual street widths are really, really narrow. Yes. They're people, I believe, out of the goodness of their heart and doing the right thing by their fellow motorists and that, they're putting two wheels up, onto the actual verge. Now, that may be an issue where in those particular areas that the residents might be okay with, because it's giving access to garbage trucks that go through, emergency vehicles and so forth. Yes. However, it could be in situations, if you do that in some areas, it would piss off people simply due to the fact that they care for that nature strip. They mow it, they look after it, they prune the edges. That's part of their responsibility of being a good neighbour to everybody in that particular area. So look, you're right. There probably will be a decision come forward as to what we do with this. Whether we have actually an indent inside of that, where we actually put concrete in areas that wish to go through. So I believe, whilst you're never ever going to get 100% of people, in agreement with things, you would want to have, if you're going to trial an area, you'd want to have a majority of people that are okay with what is actually, put forward. Yes. So if you're going to have an indent, going to have a concrete strip up on the grass side of the gutter, so that you can actually get two wheels up, I'm in favour of that, as long as it's the majority of people and they understand what they're getting themselves in for. Yeah.
And I think you raise a really interesting point. I mean, the verge or the footpath is for the safe passage of pedestrians. Now, from what we've kind of deduced so far, council is looking at, solutions like this, retrospective solutions, because the road widths are at the current national standard, which, for all effects seem to be too narrow. Now, obviously there is a plethora of issues around this. Why are the roads so narrow? I know the Mayor was quoted recently as saying that the roads are that narrow to allow for more blocks to increase housing affordability, which was an interesting perspective. And, he quoted this as being verge parking and road widths is a very tricky issue. And on that, I think everyone can agree. But I think it's important that we kind of start drilling down into this topic and proactively ensuring that in these new housing developments, council and councillors and residents aren't inheriting this issue forevermore. I mean, what would you...
Well, we have inherited them. Yeah. That's, there's no disputing the fact that we've inherited a situation. If you go back 2 or 3 decades, there probably only was one car or at maximum 2 cars. Yes. Now with kids staying at home a lot longer, there's some instances there's 5 cars in the actual area. Yeah. So instances around the General Hospital in Nambour, where a lot of those cars are getting parked out on the street. It is a big issue. It is an extremely big issue. So, look, we've inherited it. If I was to stand here and say we've supported, and I dare say the development industry has pushed for it in the fact that it is housing affordability that is being the big winner in this. You know, they get the tick. I think I, like a lot of my colleagues, would like to see the genuineness of that the actual affordability, we seem to get smaller and smaller road widths, but we don't see that equating to a lower price for land value going to the market.
And I think, look, it's an interesting point. I mean, if the smaller blocks are around housing affordability, then that's fantastic. But if the housing affordability creates narrower roads, which then pass on issues to council, which then have to take ratepayers' money to retrofit streets with verge parking, really, what is it saving? And that's not considering, you know, council coming out and delivering fines in areas where it's reported. So, you know, look, I think that the mayor is definitely right. It is a very tricky issue. I think it's something that certainly needs more exploration. I mean, in your electorate, you obviously have compounded by the hospital issues, as you kind of touched upon.
Exactly, most definitely. So you get instances where residents are actually forced, if they want to actually put a car outside, whether it be Auntie Nellie that's come up from South Australia to stay with them for a couple of weeks, they're forced to put their car out on the road. Well, we've actually put time limits on those to get an actual position where they can park out there. It costs the residents another $50, and in my line of thinking, that's not right. You're actually putting a further burden on those residents just because they want to park a car of a tradesman that's come to them, or a relative or a friend that's come to visit. It's not. It's really, and by the way, that particular permit is only for the landowner's occupation of the street, not the people. So the friends get to park into their car park in their yard, and then the owners have to do it. The street. Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's really not practical in so many ways. And I think, look, you touched upon, you know, there's more people in houses now. I mean, kids don't move out of home like they used to. So you can have 2 or 3 kids at home. Mum and dad have a car. The children's boyfriend or girlfriend can come over and visit. So you can have 4, 6, 8 cars needing to park at a property. And, you know, tying into...
Well, I don't know about 4 or 6. You know, the 4 definitely, and up to 5, I've seen it many a time. Yes. Okay, yep. When you get a couple of grown-up kids and another person coming over to stay over for the night, there's certainly around 5. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, look, I really do appreciate your time. I understand how busy you are. We truly appreciate you coming out. And look, thank you. We'll share this with the coast.
Thanks very much, and thanks for your initiative of actually being proactive.
No worries.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.